This is the new 5th generation Kia Sportage. It's got a new look, new tech, new hybrid engines, new mechanical underpinnings, new everything, and we're going to find out exactly what it's like. But before we start, subscribe to our channel so you can see all of our new car reviews as soon as they go live, and go to whatcar.com for a great deal on your next car. It's hard to think of a new car that's up against more rivals than the Sportage, and the reason for that is it's a bit bigger than SUVs like the Seat Ateca and Nissan Qashqai, VW Tiguan, Skoda Karoq, but it's a bit smaller than the Peugeot 5008, the Land Rover Discovery Sport and the Mazda CX-5. So it kind of sits in that middle ground between those two groups of SUVs, and it sits there alongside the closely related and similarly sized Hyundai Tucson. And Kia clearly wanted to give the Sportage a very distinctive look to help it stand out from all of those rivals. And that's interesting because the previous Sportage was a massive seller for the brand. But rather than create something that looked very similar to that previous popular model, they've now gone for this different look here. And it's clearly inspired by the fully electric EV6. And if you want to watch our full review of that car, then click on the link at the top of the screen. And the makeover continues inside, where the new Sportage has had a major revamp in here. So now, again, like the outside, it's been kind of inspired by the EV6. So you've got these two screens which are joined together. They're 12.3 inches each, and this one's for the infotainment, and this one is for the driver display. Now, the infotainment system is pretty good. It's got nice graphics, it's got a really responsive screen, it's got a relatively simple layout as well, and what's good is it's mounted relatively high on the dashboard, so it's pretty easy to see while you're driving. So that is good. Down here, you've got a touch screen panel. Now, normally we'd be going, oh God, this is rubbish, like it just doesn't work, it's impossible to use while you're driving. But to be fair, this, by the standards of touchscreen systems, is pretty good. The reason for that is the icons are just about big enough to be able to see clearly and hit relatively easily on the move, and you still do have these two dials either side of this as well. And what's also quite cool, quite useful, is the fact that you can jump between this controlling the air conditioning or giving you some extra additional shortcut buttons to help use the infotainment system above it. One problem I do have here though is in my driving position, I can't see the whole of this driver display, which is really annoying because the thing that's mainly blocked is the speedo. So that means I'm gonna have to have the wheel high, or I'm gonna have to sit higher, or I'm just gonna have to put up with a bad neck trying to look around the steering wheel, trying to see what speed I'm going. Although there is quite a lot of adjustment in the steering wheel and the seat. So you will be able to get comfortable. You just might not be able to guarantee that you'll be able to see absolutely everything on this screen, which is otherwise nice and clear, got good graphics. It's just a shame it might not work for everyone. But this does generally look like a pretty good interior, doesn't it? So again, as we said, it's inspired by the EV6. It is quite similar to that car. And we are technically in a European spec version of the Sportage, which you won't actually be able to buy exactly like this in the UK, but it's representative of a GT Line S Sportage that you can get in the UK. So that essentially means we are in a range-topping model which costs around £40,000. So the question is this as good as a Volvo XC40 in here? Well, the build quality does certainly seem very impressive. It's all screwed together really well. It's got a good feeling of robustness in everything. Nothing feels particularly flimsy, but not all of the materials feel amazing quality. And that's perhaps where the difference is between this and an XC40 and other premium SUVs. The fact that you're just kind of missing an extra layer of panache that you get with those SUVs. But this is at least as good as the impressive Hyundai Tucson. Plus, this has arguably more of a wow factor than that interior as well, because you've got these two screens on the dashboard here. So this is impressive, but the thing to bear in mind is that this is as good as a Sportage gets. As I said, we're in a range-topping model. If you go for the entry-level 2 trim, then you get a smaller touchscreen. Then you've got to go up to 3 trim before you get a digital driver display as well. And on those entry-level trims, the materials in this interior can be a bit different as well. So if you like this kind of Alcantara look on the door here, and if you like the faux leather, then you won't get that on the entry-level models, and it will look and feel a bit different as a result. But then they're cheaper than the range-topping models, so of course there has to be some kind of difference. But overall, by the standards of the class, this is a good interior. Now, the new Sportage is slightly longer and slightly wider than the old model. And to be fair, the old model had pretty good rear seat space anyway, so now it's a little bit better. I'm just under 6 foot. The driver's seat's in my driving position. You can see legroom, no problem at all. There's also loads of space for my feet under the seats in front as well, so you can stretch out and relax. The only slight problem you might have back here is headroom, because on the top 2 trims, you get a panoramic sunroof as standard. So with it fitted, if I sit up straight, my head isn't touching the roof, but I'm not far off and it does feel a little bit cramped. So in a pretty big SUV, that is a bit disappointing, but then hopefully if you go for the lower trim levels that don't have this sunroof, then you'll have more headroom for people sat in the back of the car. You get reclining rear seats if you want them. Other things to point out back here are 4 coat hangers, 2 on the backs of each front seat. So you've got one up top here, you've got another one further down, fair enough, and some helpful USB-C ports back here as well. So overall, in the back, the headroom might not be amazing on these top 2 trim levels, but it still feels relatively open, spacious, and comfortable. The Sportage gets a massive 591 litre boot, which is 100 litres more than you could get in the previous generation and is quite a bit bigger than a Nissan Qashqai and even a Skoda Karoq and a Mazda CX-5 as well. Now, it's not quite as big as a Peugeot 5008, but it is very similar to what a Hyundai Tucson offers. If you go for a hybrid version, then boot space is reduced a little bit, and if you go for a plug-in hybrid, then it's reduced a bit more. But even then, you still get 540 litres, which is still bigger than what a Karoq offers. Now you can see it is a really good boot, nice simple shape. There's a bit of wheel arch encroachment on either side there, but still a good practical shape that also offers a height adjustable boot floor, so you can lower it down if you want to increase the load capacity further in here, or keep it up top and give yourself a bit of underfloor storage as well. And another great thing that Sportage gets as standard is the ability to fold each rear seat individually. Some other rivals only let you put the rear seats down in 2 lumps. The Kia Sportage engine lineup consists of a 1.6 litre petrol engine, a 1.6 litre diesel engine, and you can have both of them with mild hybrid tech or without. Then above that, you've got the full hybrid, which is the car that we're driving today. And then the range-stopping version of the Kia Sportage is the plug-in hybrid. So the hybrid that we're in now, it gets a 1.6 litre petrol engine with an electric motor and a very small battery. And it's really good, to be honest. It's very quiet at low speeds. With the electric motor, it feels quite zippy as well. And this is fairly quick. It's not absolutely rapid, but it's definitely got more than enough power for your motorway journeys and very long distances you're going to be covering in this car as well. So it's impressive in that regard, and you never find yourself wishing that it was more powerful than it is. The only problem with it is, at low speeds, it's very nice and quiet, feels zippy, very hushed, but the gearbox isn't great. So it's a 6-speed automatic. It's not a CVT, which is quite rare in a hybrid system. Most of them have CVTs. But the gearbox is just a bit jerky, and it's not the most responsive thing in the world. In terms of the handling, it's fine in the Sportage. There's nothing amazing to report, and there's nothing terrible to report. So body control is good. The steering is okay. It's a bit vague around the straight ahead. Compared to the Tucson, when you get in that car, the steering initially feels quite light and quick and sporty, although it doesn't take very long to realise that it's not a sporty car to drive. You don't really have the same sensation in the Sportage. It does feel a bit slower, so it can mean that, especially if you're on the motorway, you might find yourself making quite constant corrections to the steering to keep in a straight line. But it's really not that much of a big issue, and for the kinds of journeys, the types of driving you're going to be doing in this car, it's absolutely fine. Now, the ride isn't actually something that we can discuss for very long, because the car that we've got now is on adaptive suspension, which you can't get in the UK. So it does ride fairly impressively, to be honest. It's got a nice float to the car, but you cannot buy the suspension in the UK. So there's absolutely no guarantee that how this car rides is representative of what a standard Sportage is going to ride like in the UK. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. But anyway, Here are 10 things to know about the Kia Sportage. It hasn't been crash tested by safety experts Euro NCAP just yet, but we can guarantee that this new Sportage is much safer than the first generation model from 1993, which at the time was given 1 star in an Australian crash test, and apparently there were 2 recalls issued because of a slight problem with the rear wheels dismounting while driving. This model is definitely safer and much more advanced than the first gen Sportage. You can even move this car using the key. So you can do that with remote smart parking assist, which comes as standard on the top 2 trims if you've got a hybrid or a plug-in hybrid. This is the European Sportage. There's a different version of this car sold in South Korea and the US, which is actually slightly longer than this car. But to be fair, we shouldn't feel too shortchanged over here because this European Sportage is still pretty big. There's quite a jump in price going from the regular engines up to the hybrid options, but if it's within your budget, then we do know that this hybrid is good and the plug-in hybrid should be good as well. We don't actually know the all-electric WLTP official range of that setup though, but the same system in the very closely related Hyundai Tucson gets 38 miles. The Sportage looks decently well equipped as standard, but you might want to consider jumping up to 3 trim, because if you do that, then you get some nicer interior materials, you get these big screens, you also get some luxuries like heated front and rear seats, the heated steering wheel, and adaptive cruise control. You can get 4-wheel drive with the new Sportage as well. It comes as standard with all plug-in hybrid models, but you can, if you're willing to pay extra, get it on every other engine available as well, apart from the non-mild hybrid petrol and diesel. The hybrid and plug-in hybrid versions of the Sportage get a 6-speed automatic gearbox, but if you go for one of the standard petrol or diesel engines, then you have a choice of 6-speed manual or 7-speed automatic. Kia will very much be hoping that the new 5th generation Sportage can at least match the popularity of the 4th generation model, which was a huge seller and in fact Kia's biggest seller in the UK. The starting price may seem quite punchy compared to some rivals, but that's partly because the Sportage doesn't have a stingy entry-level trim or small engines, so it is still competitively priced against equivalent rivals. And don't forget that a major bonus of buying a Kia is having that 7-year warranty as standard, but hopefully you won't even have to use that because Kia's got a great reliability record anyway. So based on this early drive of the new Sportage, it's got a really nice interior with a big and practical boot, it's decent to drive with a good hybrid engine, and it's a great all-round SUV. For more information, click on the link to go to whatcar.com where you can read our review of this car and every other new and used car around. On our website, you can also see all of our great savings on every new car. Before you go, do subscribe to our channel to see all of our other car reviews as soon as they go live, and tell us in the comments below, what do you think of the new Sportage?